Tracy and I were chatting a few months ago, and she was talking about how she wanted to get more ad agency perspective at TVOT. So we got to talking, one thing led to another, and that's where ended up talking with Dan, and he graciously agreed to come here and talk with us. Dan is SVP and Human Experience Director at Starcom in Chicago. And for those of you that don't know Starcom out of Chicago, many, many brands from Bank of America to Kellogg's, just a great book of business out of that agency. So I'm very excited to have Dan here. A bit on background is that he has ad sales, media strategy, and buying background at both the agency and on the client side. And his current responsibilities include tactical planning, buying of all lines of business, including VOD, for Bank of America, Merrill Lynch, Merrill Edge, and U.S. Trust. He also oversees the deliver discipline at Starcom, which we'll talk a bit about. In his spare time, he's also head of the agency's mobile center of excellence, and we'll go into that a bit. And before this, he was mobile marketing director at Orbitz Worldwide. So the man knows a thing or two about media. So welcome, Dan. Thanks for being here. Also, I appreciate it. For those of you that don't know, a very busy time of year in the agency community, that it is the upfront buying season. So appreciate you being here, taking time out from that.
And a slow start.
So. We're okay?
We're fine.
Okay, all right. And some of the programmers are not happy to hear that, but so be it. All right, so I mentioned about the delivery discipline that you oversee at Starcom. It's about targeting insights, experience platforms. It seems like you're taking a whole bunch of things from a certain perspective. Can you go into that a bit?
Sure. Yeah, I mean, I guess when I started, they used to call us buyers, and we've become more strategic and using more data and sources over time. But yeah, the deliver discipline at Starcom is really rooted in target insights, mining those and kind of organizing them into building experiences, so that we're not just going to market and constructing stereotypical media mix and kind of placing buys, but we're doing things that are kind of emanating from a place of what is a consumer need state and what's the driver of that need state. I think that's the biggest thing that I'm always looking for, and then trying to marry that with the opportunity in the media space.
So how do you determine, right? There's a few panels this morning talk about data, right? What fuels those questions?
Yeah, I think there's a couple of places. I mean, we can look certainly at the historical performance of our campaigns to try to get some insight into what's working. That can help. But more so than that, we're typically looking at either primary or secondary research from historical partners like Nielsen, MRI, et cetera, and then kind of increasingly building new partnerships in the data space where, you know, we're getting kind of brand new pieces of data to mine through. And really kind of there's a completely complementary disciplines at the agency as well that will solely focus on mining consumer insights and really kind of making them consumable for folks like me that need to activate and take them to market.
So how do the clients, for lack of a better term, buy into this, right? Or do they give you the freedom to do that, or they just say, darn it, Dan, your job's to give me a lower CPM, just go do that?
No, I think the nice thing is that clients are fully bought in on the need for every investment that they put in the marketplace to be smarter than the one that they put in the marketplace last year. Increasing emphasis on ROI-based metrics associated with any investment. That's now our burden, right? So a client may say, yeah, I know I told you that my campaign objective was awareness, but you need to let me know what the ROI of those investments were as well. So given that that's kind of now the way that clients speak with us, I think that gives us permission to go and be very oriented around acquiring new data, paying for data. That's something that would have been very uncommon. when I started 15 years ago, it was really about CPM-oriented buys, and there's still a focus on price. But I think increasingly when we bring recommendations to clients and there is a data cost associated with that, it's not actually a hard sell. And so I think clients are seeing that need, and they're actually budgeting, in a way that that reflects being able to acquire data and apply it on the front end, and have measurement protocols that are with our investments as well. Yeah.
And if you're evaluating a new media, is it table stakes that there's data associated with it, either that you get or that you can acquire through it, or might you just put something in there or try it just because of its trending or something like that? Like, what's that criteria?
Yeah, I think we table stakes is probably the measurement side, less so some data-oriented validation on the front end. So in many cases, you're going into things that you might have no history with as a buyer of media. The industry might have very little history with, but in order for you to be out there and bleeding and doing things that are truly going to break molds, you're very frequently doing that with very little information. So you kind of manage your investment on the front end and ensure that you can learn quickly, that you have some out clauses associated with what you're doing, learn quickly, and then kind of being able to apply those.
And the clients will allow you to do that with those certain safeguards in place.
Some are better than others. My client certainly does. And I spend most of my time on Bank of America, and you would think of traditionally a client like that as on the conservative end, but I do not find Bank of America to be a conservative advertiser with respect to trying new things, using data, kind of breaking into new media space. And I think that's actually more and more common. You're seeing CPGs being leaders in this space. People that would traditionally be thought of as conservative, they might be conservative with where they place their media, but not with how they are constructing investments and going to market in new places. So that's great.
Exciting. All right. So let's move on to the Mobile Center of Excellence that you head up. A bit more about that. I assume you took your experience at Orbitz and sort of brought that into the agency.
Yeah, for sure. So, when I came back, so I'm a boomerang. I was at the agency for 12 years, left to go client side, and came back. Came back with experience in the mobile space that was reasonably unique to the agency. So, basically charged with bringing that and creating a leadership position for the agency. What we do is the Center of Excellence is really just charged with trying to float all the intellectual boats within the agency so that everyone from a junior planner buyer, 22-year-old straight out of college, to someone who's been with the agency for 30, 35 years, that they're not just conversant, but they can go be leaders, that they can go sell things to their clients, and that they can kind of take them to spaces that they need to be. So that's really our objective.
So where have you seen mobile go in, say, the last 3 years? And when you go back and do all that educate, what resonates with clients, what doesn't? Is it search? Is it call? Call? Is it web-based? What's resonating?
I mean, for the most part, our clients are kind of trying to think about naturally taking what they've historically done in desktop display, desktop video, and taking it into the mobile space, quote unquote. So I think there's some complicating things. On the display side, you have dominant players in the gaming industry. So you have, single games like Clash of Clans that are spending hundreds of millions of dollars. Offline and online, and so they're really dominating the mobile media space, and so they're actually making it very, very interesting.
Dominating in terms of time spent or spend. Really, and what are those units? That's just banner ad units.
Yeah, so it's banner, it's video. I mean, you're also talking about some of those players are now $300 million TV advertisers. Right. So they've sprung up overnight and are really completely changing the industry, but it's actually then kind of having an impact on the supply situation in mobile as well. The thing that I think most advertisers need to spend the most time looking for, though, is mobile video solutions. So right now there are not great ways, in my opinion, to activate in the space in a scaled way that is transparent, can be proven to be effective, and is kind of has a consistency from contextual targeting that you expect in other video spaces. So I think
Was it just like there's a mobile video ad that just shows up anywhere, and
well,
you
ad networks
don't know where it was, or
yeah, I mean, ad networks have traditionally been the play in the space, right? And so you're giving up all kinds of transparency there, and so there's still, that's the primary way to scale mobile video, and that really needs to change. So I think increasingly we are seeing the move from the ad network space, which I don't know exactly who's in the room, but I don't think I haven't seen very many mobile ad networks here, so I think I can insult them without it being problematic. But the ad network space adds almost no value to the ecosystem. Allows you to scale, but you're being robbed of transparency. You're being robbed of really understanding what's working and what's not. You can't tune anything. You can't really effectively be operating in the space to make your buys better.
Well, it kind of goes back to what we were saying on data, right? That table stakes that all right, great, you put it there, but if there's no way of determining what's going on, what's the point?
So I think we as an agency are heavily moving away from any investments in ad networks. If you need to stay programmatic, you kind of move towards a DSP partner, move towards a place where you can get transparency. You can still find scale, but you can do it in a way that gives you greater comfort with how your investments are, being flowed out into the marketplace.
Do you see the mobile, everything that's happening on mobile, is it additive? Is this people at a bus stop instead of looking at a billboard or doing something, or is it, from what you see, dual screen with TV, or is it taking away from TV? What's the TV relationship?
Yeah, I mean, so total video consumption still goes up, whether it's Nielsen or ComScore or anyone that's measuring it. They see just a continued increase year over year, another 30 minutes, another 45 minutes of total consumption. So some of that is stacked, you're right, where people are, have two pieces of video happening at the same time. So their phone while they're sitting on the couch, and the big screen is going as well. But we're also just seeing continued increases overall, and I think some of that is people are just changing their behavior from reading words to consuming video. We could argue whether that's a good thing for Western civilization, but I think that's what we're seeing. We're seeing just people preferring to consume video, and more high quality video content being available, and so that's kind of continuing to feed the growth of the space.
Speaking of high quality video, let's talk about video on demand. Because I'm the moderator and you're not.
That was awesome segue.
Thank you. Happy to say Starcom has been investing, has always dabbled a bit, but in the last year or so we've seen, especially out of Bank of America. So why VOD, why now, as opposed to a year ago, 2 years ago, 3 years ago?
Yeah, so I mean, why not 3 years ago? Because I wasn't at the agency 3 years ago. I don't know. No. So came back to the agency and just did a real huge deep dive with my team. And so I have an awesome team. We got about 20 people that do a variety of tasks. But this time of year we're really looking hard at video investments, how to structure them. And so 2 years ago did a deep dive and looked at what does the consumer behavior data look like. Is there anything that appears to be an opportunity? And so I think we're seeing overall consumption of on-demand video going up 2 years ago. And then you're also seeing consumers talking about how, they're really frustrated that their DVR is always full. Increasingly looking at subscription on-demand services. So obviously Netflix among them, Hulu, others. So there seemed to be this mentality shift from people willingly thinking, yes, I know I'm going to have to record something that I want to view later, to just dashing that expectation. And now people just saying, no, I know that video and video I want is just going to be available on demand, anytime, any screen. And so VOD then became just an obvious place for us to go to reflect that. And concurrently then was just the change from the way that you used to activate video on demand, which was basically just a big on-off switch, right? You want to be on VOD? Great. The switch goes to on, and you are on, and you're everywhere, and you can't flight it, and you don't know what shows you're going to be in, and forget time-based messaging. You can't do that. So DAI then coming on board and scaling at the same time that we're making that strategic decision. That's really what led to our behavior change. And I'm proud to say that we're a real kind of catalyst within our agency, the Bank of America client, the team that I led, doing a lot of the work, writing terms and conditions, which didn't exist before. So the agency did not have VOD terms and conditions.
Right.
Didn't exist.
With each of your programmers.
Yeah. And then really bringing in, companies like Canoe to present the latest and greatest to help us understand technical capabilities. You're doing deals with publishers and programmers, and you're negotiating terms, and very frequently you kind of don't know what they can capably buy, what they can capably do from an execution standpoint.
Right.
So, bringing in Canoe and you specifically to kind of be part of that education process allowed us to go into the marketplace with a clean path, knowing what the capabilities were, and so I think all that stuff just kind of came together.
And what about client reaction? Just like that same question before, when it comes to mobile or whatever, they say good job, or this is working out, or is there resistance? How open are they?
The clients that scaled and activated were pretty thrilled with their agency's ability to find the right timing and lead them on a path that made sense. I think that we're seeing data coming out of this too that's pretty compelling, right? And so when you sit down with a client, you can say, well, you know what your CBS schedule is typically, right? It's a Scotch water mix. You got a bunch of good stuff like Big Bang Theory, and you got some other stuff that's less interesting, like 60 Minutes. And you just kind of you take that on board, and you know that you have this blended approach. You say, but in the VOD space, fully 8% of your impressions are Big Bang Theory. On your TV plan, you have a unit
Right.
of Big Bang Theory, right? So you look at that, you're like, all right, well, look at this mix change. And if you break that down on price, we did some math this year coming out of last year's investments. Our blended CPM of VOD inventory compared to our linear TV is 57% cheaper when you look at the blend of what you're getting in terms of
programs that you want.
Yeah, well, absolutely. Well, that's why, right?
Right.
Because you're at parity on price. You're saying like, okay, my linear TV CPM is going to be my base CPM in VOD, but the mix of programming in VOD is way better. So you're actually getting more of the premium priced inventory in video on demand in composition, and so that's making your buy just work that much harder. So we're able to bring stats like that to the clients, and they say,
"Good job, Dan."
Good job, right? So it made sense, and I was like, thank God, because we didn't do that work on the front end.
It's great. I told you you'd have really cool insights. All right, so let's expand out, right? So we spoke about VOD, talked about mobile. That sounds like video fragmentation to me, right? More things to be managing and looking at and all that. So what do you do to try to dashboard it, bring it all back together? And there were some panels earlier in terms of the measurement. How do you normalize it, right? So how do you roll it all up and bring it back together, as opposed to 15 years ago when you were buying, you probably just had some broadcast and some cable channels to buy.
Yeah, so ad technology is definitely playing a role for us. For us as a client, we're highly invested in AOL's ad tech platform in addition to others. But just as one example, where creating private marketplaces there, testing into programmatic TV.
And what's in that? That's the AOL one. Is that what that is? And what inventory is in there? That's broadband inventory. That's everything?
No. So it's any online videos on that platform for sure. We've tested programmatic TV on that platform as well, and really anything that can be piped can be brought onto a platform. So that's just a for example. I think other clients are going to make different platform choices, but it's imperative that you use a technology to organize some of this stuff, even just to go to market, right? Let alone your whatever you want to call your optimization engine and kind of what's tracking through to ROI-based performance just to buy all this shit. Like, you need a platform to be able to distribute to hundreds of different potential partners. And that automation is absolutely crucial. And then to be able to kind of bring it back together to say, I need to, at the end of the day, produce a flow chart to my client that is clean, right, and that is a representation of all of their video. And the only way to do that is to have kind of all of it housed in one environment. And so
you build in-house tools for that, or what's the agency perspective on that? And does that tie in with the larger MediaVest sister company? You know, how does that?
Well, it could. I mean, I think you're seeing, you know, Publicis and WPP being pretty aggressive with respect to ad tech recently. So, you know, Publicis bought a company called Run Ads, which was a mobile-first DMP, DSP, you know, cross-device attribution solution, just ad tech, right? And WPP has been making, you know, investments like that for some time, AppNexus and others. So I think, yeah, increasingly agencies are seeing that we need to have our own ad tech solutions. And it kind of makes sense for agencies to play that role. If you think about, you know, we have dozens and dozens of clients. There's 5 holding companies that represent, you know, 90% of the budgets from a media standpoint. So it makes sense for us to kind of onboard that type of technology. And so I think you're going to see continued investments like that in the space. I think they'll work in partnership with other ad tech solutions, but yeah, you're going to see agencies building where agencies have not typically built in the past. Right. And we need to, because I guess the other driver of that is, you know, clients are demanding more for less. The only way you can do more with less is 5 minutes. Is via automation, right? That's the only way. I have 20 people today. In 2 years, I'm gonna have to do the job with 5, and we'll be able to do that, right? But, you know, we have to invest in, you know, in those automation tools and in those different ways of going to market.
Well, we've been working with Dan's group in terms of technology and a little bit on the programmatic side. And I was going to give them a plug, but Tal mentioned that he couldn't be here because he had to fly to Cannes, so he doesn't get a plug. Tough. Look it up. We have a few minutes. I got one more question, but any questions? Yes, young lady in the front. Hold on one second, Kathy, because we want to pick it up on the recording. So.
Along the lines of what you were just talking about with the agencies, feeling the ad tech need to have that internally, and you know, I see it and understand it, but then I also see the networks are all building their own themselves, and so what worries me as I just look at the industry in general is we're going to silo buying and selling, and I'm confused by where all that's going to go, because everyone feels like they need to have their own platform.
I'll even throw another layer on that one too. Do you worry that your client's just going to go and build a media department and start doing buying directly also, right? A whole other aspect.
I think they will. They absolutely will, right? So as soon as their existing in-house programmatic folks realize and understand that they can do the same thing for linear TV, they will. So Allstate's a great example at our agency. They've taken all of their programmatic buying in-house. I don't see any reason why.
It's already happened.
For digital, for display and online video, right? I don't see any reason why clients like that would not contemplate further taking those solutions out. So I think for us as an agency, we have to then ask questions of ourselves, like, where do we really want to add value in this ecosystem? Do we want to try to be an incremental layer, or do we want to let the machines do what the machines do a great job of, which is connecting supply and demand? So that can be done, we know that, and we move into a more strategic role. We move into, you know, consultation. We move into kind of higher level kind of partnerships with our clients. So at the end of the day, you know, if the digital space has taught us anything, is that the programmatic tools have done a good job of automation and enabling fraud and, doing a lot of bad stuff that has robbed kind of from the ROI of the space. So you're going to continue to need people. You're going to continue to need police. You're going to continue to need, folks that are going to operate in like a fiduciary way to maintain what you're doing in the marketplace. And so I think that agencies need to more and more kind of go into that type of a role and get paid for different types of activities.
Great. Any other questions? All right. Well, we have 2 minutes, and I got one more. So, and it actually plays along really on this one, that since this is TVOT tomorrow, and I think we started to touch on it a bit of, what does buying and selling, does it look like in, pick a number, 3 years, right? So everyone throws out their programmatic number, and 50% of buying is going to happen that way in 2 years or something. Where do you see this all headed? Really expanding on what we were just talking about.
Yeah. So I think there's a hell of a lot fewer buyers, but there's a lot more buying. If I had to think about it simply, we're going to have automation, and that's going to take FTEs away from agencies. That's probably fine. We will adapt to a different way of operating, and I think increasingly you're going to do less and less multi-quarter upfront type investments. I mean, if you look at the last two upfronts and just how slow they have been, you're just seeing increasingly both sides of the equation feeling like we don't have enough information to make good decisions. And I think you're also seeing less and less dollars being expressed in those marketplaces. So I think you're gonna see moves towards greater flexibility. That's what the clients want. Clients do not want hundreds of millions of dollars tied up, locked in. Even with some cancellation options, they still want more.
That's what kills me about that, right? You've had cancellation options.
Yeah, 50%.
But it's 50%.
Yeah, it's half. So I think clients are getting used to this notion of it's all flexible. It's day out, and I can go up or down, because some clients need to go up, right? So if you're Best Buy and you see momentum against a sale, man, why wouldn't you pour more money in tomorrow, right? But you can't. You can't spend another $10 million tomorrow in television. It's impossible. But you could in this kind of next phase of the marketplace. So I think that's what we see happening. And yeah, it'll be more strategic target definitions and less demo targets, and those are the things that I think are relatively obvious. I think it's going to be more about flexible investments, fairly priced inventory. It could actually go way up, right? We could determine that television inventory is way undervalued. I actually think it probably is.
Is it going to be like Uber, and your price is going to go up?
Yeah, right. Some flexible pricing.
Right.
Yeah, exactly.
Great. Well, Dan, thank you.
Thanks.
Appreciate you being here.
Yep.
Thanks, everyone.